Everything set? Just unmute yourself. There you go.
Test.
Can we get a mic check?
Yeah, test 1, 2. Gonna take the mask off when we get started.
Yep, take the mask off. Okay, I'm gonna let everyone else in and then we'll start in a few moments, okay?
Yep.
Okay. Hi everyone, we'll start in a moment or two. Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. Hope everyone's staying safe and sound out there. As you've heard today, the Cubs announced that Theo Epstein will step down from his role as president of baseball operations effective November 20th and depart the organization after 9 seasons. Jed Hoyer, who joined the club in November 2011 as executive vice president and general manager, will be named president of baseball operations. We're pleased to be joined by Cubs chairman Tom Ricketts, as well as Theo Epstein. And we'll begin with a statement from Theo, followed by a statement from Tom, and then we can open it up to questions. So Theo, take it away.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I thought I'd start just with some background for the decision, and then I have some people I'd like to take the opportunity to thank, and then after Tom speaks, I'll be happy to answer all your questions. First, regarding the decision, I think many of you are aware that I'd always planned to be with the Cubs for about 10 years. Because of that, Tom and I had been in communication for the last several years about a possible transition and trying to figure out a way to execute a transition that would be best for the Cubs, put the organization in the best possible position, and also be good for me. And the communication was something I really appreciate. It was so well done. Tom, looking out for me and my interests, and I was trying always to focus on the best interests of the Cubs, and it couldn't have been more amicable. And I really appreciate the way that was handled. So we'd been communicating and using October 2021 really as a placeholder for when we would likely execute a transition. And then, this summer, it became apparent to me for a number of reasons that we should strongly consider moving up the date of the transition by a year. First of all, it became really clear that we'd be facing some significant long-term decisions this winter, decisions with long-term impacts. And those types of decisions are really best made by somebody who's going to be here for a long time, not just for one more year, and somebody who's invested in the organization for the long haul. And Jed clearly is that person, and I'll get into talking about Jed in a second. Second, this summer it became clear the extent to which COVID was going to stress our business and our people, and it's affected every business in the sports world and really across the country generally. But due to those stresses, we were going to be facing a challenge of having to allocate some temporarily reduced resources in a way that would allow us to move forward and be successful. And had I decided to come back in 2021, that would have made that challenge even more difficult. Last, Jed is ready to take over. He really is. He's been a huge part of all our success here. He's been a huge part of my success in my career. Jed has done the job of being a number one in baseball operations before. He had 2 successful years in that capacity with the San Diego Padres. He ensures great continuity. All of the terrific people in our front office and throughout the organization are going to stay in place because Jed is taking over. And even as Jed represents continuity and preserves our areas of strength, I think he is also realistic about the areas where we have to change and where we have to do better. And he's always been realistic about that and always open to changes. For example, he was instrumental in the restructuring and reimagining of our scouting and player development departments a couple years ago. And in short, Jed is his own man. He's been a loyal and outstanding right-hand man, but he has his own opinions, his own perspective, his own leadership style. He really, truly does not need me over his shoulder this next year while we finish off a transition that in a lot of respects has been years in the making. So he's going to do an outstanding job. He deserves this opportunity, and the Cubs are lucky to have him. I am so incredibly grateful for the last 9 years. It's been really a life-changing experience for me and for my family. The best part, of course, has been the relationships and the connections with people that I've been lucky enough to make along the way. And so because of that, I know I didn't just win an Oscar or anything, never will, but I do have some people I'd like to thank, starting with Tom and the Ricketts family. Thank you for the opportunity, for the loyalty, for the support. I was thinking about this earlier, but you truly have done everything that you set out to do, everything that you promised me you lived up to, and everything that you promised the fans too. If you look at how your first 10 years owning the club has gone. And as somebody who is very likely to become a season ticket holder of the Cubs going forward, I'm really, really pleased that you and your family are going to be owning this franchise for generations to come. To my colleagues, thank you for all the hard work, the dedication, the loyalty, the friendship over the years. 9 years ago, we set a couple of goals. The first was to build a foundation for sustained success that would allow us to get into the playoffs on a regular basis. And the second was over time and together to build a team that could win a world championship for the Cubs. And it has not been perfect. It's baseball. So by definition, it's never going to be perfect. But we've accomplished those goals together. And you should be extremely proud of everything that you've contributed to this organization and where it is today and everything that you've helped build. A special thank you from that group to Jed, to Jason McLeod, to Matt Dory, and to others who left great jobs in baseball to follow me here. Thank you for that special trust you placed in me, and I'm so glad that things have gone so well for you here and that you ultimately triumphed. Your trust means the world to me. Thank you. Next, to our players and everyone in uniform, Rossi, Joe, all the coaches, thank you for your leadership and your hard work, both on the field and behind the scenes, and for everything you guys have done to transform this franchise. You guys have been the ones in the arena, so to speak, putting in the blood, sweat, and tears. You all should be extremely proud of the legacy that you're leaving, or the legacy that you'll have here at the Cubs. To our fans, thank you for the support, the deep connection, everything you bring to the table that makes the Cubs experience so special and so resonant. It really is different here, and that's thanks to you guys. Been thinking, obviously through a lot of memories over the last couple of days, and with respect to the fans, the one I keep coming back to is, right as we started to turn the corner in the rebuild, I was walking home from a game. I always walk home from the games, and walking away from Wrigley with this crowd of fans. We just had a really great game, and I could eavesdrop on the conversations and overhear what they were saying. And the fans were just so excited about our young players, so optimistic about the future, couldn't wait for what lay ahead. And it was such a special time, such an expectant time. And it felt like the lines between fans and front office members and players were blurred, because we were all part of this club that was in on a secret. I think we all kind of knew what was about to happen, maybe before the rest of the baseball world did. And then fast forward to Seeing you guys celebrate the World Series championship at the parade with generations of your family, seeing the pennants and the hats draped over gravestones for those who didn't quite live to see it, just incredibly moving and memorable, and underscores to me how special you guys are, and how much you mean to this Cubs experience. So thank you for everything that you bring to this franchise and have meant to me over the years. Most importantly, to my family, my wife Marie, and my boys Jack and Drew. Thank you for the love, support, the guidance, and the inspiration over the years, and also for the understanding and the sacrifices that you guys make to allow me to work the hours and live the lifestyle that's necessary to succeed in this job. We still look forward to going to games at Wrigley all together as a family, and we'll be fans now. And as I've said to a few people over the last couple of days, when we do sit in the seats at Wrigley and look out and watch the Cubs play and sit amongst the fans here in Chicago, it will feel like home. And that's because of how special and meaningful the last 9 years have been. So thanks for everything. I'll turn it over to Tom, and then I'll be happy to take all your questions once he's done. Thank you.
Thanks, Theo. Well, a little over 9 years ago, we went looking for a new person to lead our baseball department, and we knew it would be a tall order. Not only do we need someone who can bring in some good players and win some big games and maybe win a division, but we really needed someone who could change the culture and change the direction of the organization that had been going for a long, long time. We were known as the lovable losers, and everyone on the call or the Zoom here knows that we had a curse. So we knew it would be a tough job, and we were very fortunate that Theo was available for us at the time. Theo came in 9 years ago. He hit the ground running, put together a brilliant staff, and early on promised us sustained success. And to a Cubs fan, that was a foreign concept. But then, after 2 years of hard work and rebuilding the organization, he delivered sustained success. Not only did we have the 2016 World Series, which of course was the most remarkable and memorable World Series of all time, we had great playoff runs in years around that. And we sustained that success to go to the playoffs 5 of the last 6 years, and be considered a contender every year. So after 9 years of great work, Theo is leaving, but he's not leaving an organization in the lurch. We've been talking about this for a while. The organization is in great shape, and we look forward to the ongoing success of the Cubs. And I just want you, on behalf of myself, the fans, the family, want to thank him for 9 incredible years, for delivering on the promise of a World Series, for creating that sustained success, for destroying the lovable loser moniker, and really I think the legacy that Theo leaves behind is an organization that expects to win, not an organization that is surprised to win. And and on a personal level, it's a sad day for me personally. Theo and I have become very good friends over the years. We have an incredible professional relationship, but I considered him all these years to be a great partner and truly a good friend. And it's been an incredible journey for me as an individual, as well as the journey for the team on the field. But with that said, while I'm kind of losing a great friend and a great partner, I'm very, very excited about the transition and the continuity that we have in front of us. All of you on this call know Jed. Jed has been with the organization since a couple of days after Theo came in, and he's going to be an incredible leader for this organization, just as Theo was. Most of you in the baseball world know that every single GM opening in baseball I think Jed has had a chance at. He's had lots of calls, lots of offers over the years, but he's always been loyal to the Cubs and stayed with us and helped us continue to win. So while we're losing one of the best leaders in all of baseball, I feel like we're also gaining one of the best leaders in all of baseball. So, like it's a bittersweet day. I just know that this is the right thing for the organization. I appreciate the honesty and the direct way that Theo has worked with me on this, and we've worked together on this. I have no doubt that the organization is in the best place it could be and positioned for future ongoing sustained success. And with that, I'll turn it back over to people that want to ask questions.
And thank you,
Thanks, Tom.
Theo. Tom, we can start out with questions now.
Theo, it's Bruce Levine, first of all. It's a fantastic run, and
Thank you.
personally, I appreciate the professionalism you brought to the job every day. As far as your future goes, would you say that if teams came after you now, you would not consider offers, or will you listen, knowing that you've already said to some of your friends that you probably need to take some time off?
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. I appreciate that. And let me take this opportunity just to thank all of you in the media for the working relationship of the last 9 years, the professionalism as well as the trust. I really have enjoyed the back and forth and reading your coverage of this journey over the years. Thank you for adding to the experience and especially doing so for the fans who I know appreciate everything that you guys do. So thanks, and look forward to staying in touch with you guys. As far as my future plans and other teams, I mean, I kind of come from the school of never ruling anything out, but having some firm ideas in my mind of what I think is best for me and best for my family. I do hope and expect to have a third chapter in baseball, but in no shape or form do I expect to do it right away. I envision, taking some time to pursue other pursuits, to spend with my family, and to do some things that have just been impossible when you're going to a ballpark every single day, every summer for the last 29 years. I do hope to stay engaged in the game. This game is my passion. I care deeply about it. And so I'm going to seek out ways to serve the game in the near future. And I've already, started to pursue a few possible avenues to do that. But I mean, I expect my phone will probably be ringing, and I always answer and look forward to, hearing what people have to say, since I'm open-minded about my future. But those are my plans. I don't expect to jump right back in with another team now, and I'm really looking forward to the freedom to explore lots of different things.
Theo, again, thank you for everything you've done for us in the media. What is the one thing when you look at not the wins, not the World Series, but what is something intangible that you didn't know you would enjoy so much being in charge of the Cubs?
Yeah. I think the thing that stands out to me that's special about the Cubs is the depth of the connection with the fans, and how intimate that connection is, and how easily shared it is. The Cubs are an important part of what connects families in this city and groups of friends, and it's part of the rhythm of the spring, summer, and fall. And it's an important part. The Cubs experience is such an important part of the texture of the city as well. And, I kind of could sense that from afar, but getting to be immersed in it, you realize how different and how special it is. And then the ability to share that. Again, I talked earlier about the lines being blurred here between, those who work for the team, those who play for the team, those who love the team and sit in the stands. And I really feel like this journey has been something we've taken on together. That's how it's felt. And Boston, maybe my perspective in Boston was different because I grew up a Red Sox fan, so I already felt that way, and it was already part of who I was. But getting dropped into this situation 9 years ago, feeling like a stranger, not being, the Chicago, the Cubs fans all being foreign to me. And now I look 9 years later, and I feel like it's in my blood too. And I don't think that would have been possible elsewhere. It's the closeness of the connection with the fans as you go through the Cubs experience that stands out the most to me. Along with, behind the scenes, the closeness of our organization and the relationships. It's been, the hardest part is moving on from the immediate proximity to a lot of people I work with because the relationships are so special and they'll last a lifetime. But when you cherish certain relationships and you cherish certain experiences, moving on from those can be really difficult. But it just means it's been incredibly meaningful.
I had a related questions for both Tom and Theo. Tom, without getting, I know we can't really get into specifics on this, but could you give us a sense of whether all or portion of that final year on Theo's contract is being recouped and how that might be redirected within the organization, especially, in the wake of these layoffs and some payroll cutting that we already have pretty good ideas coming. And then Theo, was that part of the thinking toward what the Cubs could get out of this, kind of recouping a little bit of that and kind of helping through these times?
Yeah, I can take a first crack at that. I mean, I'm not going to be here in 2021, so I won't be paid in 2021, which is appropriate and the right thing. Look, that was a small part of the equation. I think as the world changed this summer for everybody, and as we sat and sort of sorted through what that meant for our short-term challenges. Because the Cubs, in the long run, are in great shape with tremendous resources and a thriving baseball operation. As Tom said, we're going to be competitive every year. But, of course, with the world changing, it creates some short-term challenges. And, a small part of the equation, as I looked at it, is that, some of the math is a little bit easier, is a little bit better position for the Cubs with me not being here. But the primary driver is just, look, we're in a period of transition. There are a lot of important decisions to be made that will have long-term consequences. Jed is ready, willing, and able to make those decisions along with our talented front office, and that made the timing right. So it was part of it, but not a primary driver.
Yeah, from my standpoint, I would just say the money had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
But will it help you reallocate and help some of that process along?
Yeah.
Ultimately, those resources stay in the organization. So in that respect, yes, but it really had nothing to do with what you're seeing today.
And just to be clear, since you asked the question, Tom has never brought up money one time, nor has he ever asked me to step down or anything close to that. It has not been a primary part of the conversation at all.
Theo, what was this summer you said you kind of came to the realization that maybe it was time to do this earlier. Was it a sense of burnout? I mean, this is a stressful season for everyone. Was there something where you felt like maybe because it feels like you could be useful this year with this transition, obviously, even if you step back a little bit. So what kind of pushed you to make this decision?
Yeah, no sense of burnout whatsoever. I am self-aware enough to know that just based on my personality and the way I operate, forcing myself to change every so often is important. I referenced the Bill Walsh kind of loose 10-year rule, and I've always that's always resonated with me, and maybe it's even particularly applicable to me. I mean, if you look at my track record in Boston and then here in the first 6 years or so, we did some pretty epic things, and then the last couple of years weren't as impressive, and maybe what that tells me is I think I'm great at and really enjoy building and transformation and triumphing. Maybe I'm not as good and not as motivated by maintenance, so to speak. And as soon as you get to the point where it can start to feel that way to you, then I think you owe it to yourself, and as importantly, if not more importantly, to your employer to be open about that and seek to pursue change that's in the best interest of the organization and the individual. So not burnout, but I think, I'm just somewhat self-aware, not in a lot of areas, but in some areas I am. And I'm self-aware enough in this area to know that, after a while I need a new challenge. And I think the Cubs, with everything that we're facing and a natural transformation happening anyway with the player group and coming through COVID and Jed being ready, it was the right time. And yeah, maybe I could have been useful in 2021, but Jed and I have been working on this transition, as I mentioned earlier, for a long time, and he is ready. He's at the point where he does not need me over his shoulder.
What do you see that third chapter in baseball being for you? Is it a similar role? Is it ownership? Just how do you see that transpiring?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, being part of an ownership group is something that has always appealed to me, but it's just so it can seem so unattainable that I haven't been really realistic about it yet. I have seen how impactful a team, especially a championship team, can be in a community, and I've seen firsthand with Tom and the Ricketts family and John and Tom and the ownership in Boston, how baseball team owners can be transformed into forces for civic good and help a lot of people and be involved in a lot of the important conversations and in the city and be a solution for a lot of issues in cities. So that does appeal to me. A lot of things would have to go right for that to happen. Usually for that type of thing to happen, you need access to a lot of capital. You need to have pretty good proximity to those types of transactions. You need to be able to, single-handedly transform a baseball organization. And, who knows? Maybe I have plans for some of those things down the line, but a lot would have to go right for that to happen. But that would be a great role. But short term, I really want to try to help the game as best I can. This is the best game in the world by far, in my opinion. But we do face some very real challenges. There are some storm clouds on the horizon, and we have to find a way to navigate through that as an industry. I'm happiest when baseball is sort of drives the sports conversation in this country and is atop the perch as the true national pastime, hands down, no questions asked. And just there are a lot of threats to that with everything going on in the world and industry issues that we face over the next year or so. So I'd love, now that I'm not with the team and I'm outside, maybe there's some way I could help or be of assistance. So I'm going to stay in the game, one form or another, short term and long term. I'm confident of that.
Kind of following up on that, have you been approached by MLB, or have you approached them about, say, some sort of consulting role or getting involved with the league office somehow?
About who?
MLB was the league office.
MLB. I've had just ongoing dialogue over the years with Rob, and especially with Dan Halem and Morgan Sword and Chris Marinac in about industry issues. They do a great job of giving the GMs a voice and thinking through problems together. So that's been ongoing, but I'm sure we'll be talking. Maybe there's a way it could work out where I could assist them in all the great work that they're doing. But I'll leave that to another day. We'll see what happens. Whether I am involved in some capacity or not, I have great dialogue with the folks at MLB and can always pick up the phone and contribute anything I have to offer, answer questions. But we're in great hands as we sit here today as an industry with everyone working in Central Baseball.
Hey Theo, when you guys came in 9 years ago, you were kind of different in how you approached the transformation of the organization and building it from the ground up and being honest with your fan base about, this is going to hurt and we're going to have to go through some rough patches to get to that ultimate sustained success that we see. As you look at how the game itself has changed in the last couple of years with more teams being more open to rebuilds and being more honest with fan bases about it, is that an area where you look and say, we're proud of what we built to not only help the Chicago Cubs, but to help baseball as a whole, in some ways, if that makes sense?
No, I think we rebuilt back then because we had to, and really it was more than just our strategy with what we did on the field. We had to build the organization up, the infrastructure, the personnel, the systems that we needed to put into place, and it coincided with a period where we obviously prioritized the long term over the short term with the team on the field. But I don't know. I think too many teams rebuilding at once or making that the default mechanism to achieve success is not necessarily a great thing for baseball. Nor do I think it's necessary. And so no, I'm not. That's not something I'm particularly proud of or spend a lot of time thinking about. But I think what we did was right for us. But every situation, and we're at a different point in time now than we were 9 years ago, certainly. And every organization just has to go through an honest assessment of where they are, what's their best path to success to make their fans happy watching October baseball as often as possible.
Hey Theo, about a year ago, Scott Harris left to be GM for San Francisco, and you were talking about how the front office kind of needs to rebuild in that fashion to bring more front office material type people into the organization. How do you feel the organization has built upon that in the past year, and kind of how important is it for the second in charge behind Jed to be that person that's a fresh perspective, like you say, that needs an organization needs every decade or so?
Yeah, well, I feel like it's been a really productive couple of years in the organization, and that will set us up well for success in the future. It was not easy, but definitely necessary to completely start over in scouting and player development in a lot of ways, and it was an organization-wide effort. As part of that process, we brought in some incredibly talented individuals. Craig Breslow joined the organization, Dan Kantrovitz joined the organization, and countless others. So I think we've added a lot of talent and brain power in the last couple of years. I think this move now will probably afford Jed the opportunity to consider the right addition from the outside, as well as invest in the great people that we have here. And this was what just occurred today is pretty rare in professional sports. If you think about it, it's not too often that you have a seamless transition from one regime to the next in this manner. And I think that speaks to the work that Jed and everyone in the front office has done over the last 9 years, that Tom is willing to bet on them and put his faith in them. The peaceful transfer of power is getting rarer in the country, let alone in the sports world these days. So I'm proud that we pulled that off. So continuity is important because there are some incredibly talented people here and some things that we do really, really well. And then fresh perspective and openness to change continues to be important too, because there's clearly areas where we need to improve. As I said, it has not been perfect, and we're all well aware of that, but very well positioned going forward.
On that subject, what can you tell us about your plans for that open DM spot?
Well, that's one for Tom, not for me, I think.
Yeah, Tom.
Yeah.
And that one is actually one for Jed, not me. As you guys know, I don't get involved in that. So we'll have an opportunity to talk to Jed in a few days, and that'd be a great question for him.
Is there any chance that, short term, you would go with a sort of a tighter structure at the top? Maybe not fill that position right away, or is that something you guys look to do immediately?
I'm not sure if that's a question for me, but it really, once again, is a question for Jed.
Well, I just mean in terms of what structure you want at the top of that front office, particularly short term. Could you go with just Jed running it without necessarily having a GM in title for a while?
Yeah, of course. I mean, if Jed's prepared for the task. I mean, obviously he's been with us for a long time. He's been a GM, a top job, at the top job with the Padres for a couple of years. He's 100% ready to go. To the extent he wants to supplement his staff or reorganize a little bit to give him the best advice he thinks he needs, then I'll support it 100%.
Tom, you described the context in which you hired Theo. I was just wondering what your conversations have been like with Jed in terms of. Sorry, we got a new dog. In terms of like setting a vision, given the state of the major league roster and kind of the COVID world we're living in now, what's your kind of vision for him and your expectations?
Well, I think Jed knows that these are going to be interesting and uniquely challenging years. I mean, obviously this year was one. Next year will be very difficult. We don't have a lot of information. We're not sure if we'll have fans in the ballpark. We're not sure when the season's going to start. There's a lot of variables, but with respect to the situation, I think Jed's on top of it. I think he's extremely well qualified, ready to go, and we'll just work through it together.
Kind of on that subject for both of you, we both talked about both the continuity aspect, but also Jed's new perspective. What ways do you see that new perspective playing out and him approaching this role differently?
Is that for me? That's another one. Let's let Jed talk about that. I don't want to put words in his mouth or put him in a position where he's defending my comments about what he thinks. So there'll be a time for Jed to talk about that directly.
Yeah, and I can just add that Jed is someone who's extremely progressive, forward-thinking, honest with himself about the organization, and he's always been at the forefront of our attempts to change and to modernize. So I'm confident that even though he's been here, the Cubs are getting the benefit of fresh eyes, so to speak, and that he'll be a force for continued progress and change within the organization.
Theo, have you ruled out politics completely? And also, it sounds like is Chicago your long-term home now, or is this just while you wait for something else?
Yeah, well, as far as politics goes, I'm not sure why anyone would inflict that upon themselves or their family, but policy is interesting. Politics, not interesting to me. Politics, not so much. But I think there are ways to impact the world around us without necessarily diving into those political waters. And maybe I'll be lucky enough to have a chance to do that in some form or another. Yes, our plans are to continue to live in Chicago for the near term and potentially for the long term. We love it here. It's home now for our family.
What's your big, especially since the World Series, what would be, you say, maybe your biggest regret or maybe something you wished that would have gone differently since that time?
It's sort of obvious our postseason performance since 17. So 18, 19, 20, and 19 we didn't get in, but our performance down the stretch. So our performance when it really mattered, I thought was a calling card for us through 15, 16, and even into 17. If you look at the division series that year, and I felt that was a part of our identity and something that we could rely on. Just that we tended to, back then when our backs were against the wall, we found a way to play our best baseball. And, for whatever reason, we just have not done the same in big moments the last 3 years. So that's a regret. And, and obviously we've invested a lot of resources, both in terms of just payroll, but, probably more importantly, supplementing through trades and to put this group in position to have those big moments and to come through. And I didn't do a good enough job, or else we would have come through in those situations. So I wish that we would have found a way to play a little bit better baseball in the big moments the last 3 years. Cause we were, I know 18, we didn't play, those losing game after game after game right at the end there, game 162 and the tiebreaker and then the wild card game makes you forget we were a really talented team. We won 95 games, and then 19, we were so well positioned going into September with a lot going for us. And this past year we won the division, but in all 3 instances we had nothing to show for it that counts long terms in terms of like the flags that fly forever. So that's probably my biggest regret as I look back.
Theo, you mentioned wanting to maybe make your next baseball job one that allows you to sort of address some of these bigger existential issues that face the game. And I have my own ideas of what those would be, but I'm curious just sort of what do you see as those big threats to the game that you could maybe help out with in some sort of policy way? Yeah,
I mean, I don't think it's appropriate for me to expound on that too much in this seat. And we have great people in the industry already working on those issues, but clearly, and this is well documented, but just the quality of on-field play. It is the greatest game in the world, but there are some threats to it because of the way the game is evolving. And I take some responsibility for that, right? Because the executives like me who have spent a lot of time using analytics and other measures to try to optimize individual and team performance have unwittingly had a negative impact on the aesthetic value of the game and the entertainment value of the game in some respects. I mean, clearly, the strikeout rate's a little bit out of control, and we need to find a way to get more action in the game, get the ball in play more often, allow players to show their athleticism some more, and give the fans more of what they want. And maybe there's a way to do that through changes over time, and to put the game back in the hands of the players and let them do their thing on the field. And I think that's the best way to give the fans more of what they want. So, the game changes whether you're intentional about it or not. We've had this incredible rise in strikeout rate and 3 true outcomes, and starters are not going as deep in games. Relievers, the one-inning reliever and the increase of the number of relievers on rosters has led, and the incredible increase in stuff and velocity and movement have led to this strikeout rate that's impacting the game. So maybe there's ways to get that under control a little bit. And then, obviously COVID has impacted the industry, Major League Baseball and the teams, and especially the players, and the union all did a great job working together to get through this year and turn it into ultimately a triumph on the field. But that threat remains. And then obviously long term, everyone hopes that there will be a CBA moving forward and labor peace that allow the game to continue to thrive. So just from a distance, that's what it looks like. And I know there are great people hard at work on that. But when you're with a club, you don't necessarily have the ability to be objective and contribute to that discourse. But now that I won't be with the club anymore, maybe I can find a way to do that in some fashion.
Thank you.
Theo, whether it be roster construction, leadership style, whatever it is, what would you say is the biggest difference between you and Jed?
Besides height, let's see, roster leadership style. I don't know. I think it might be leadership style born of personality. Like Jed is, first of all, he's a great leader and great friend and incredible to work with. He's probably more measured maybe a little bit more methodical, contemplative, and so maybe I think by extension, the systems that are in place and the relationships that are in place and the decision-making processes will evolve in a way that reflects his approach and personality. And I think that's the way things should be. I think the Cubs will ultimately benefit from that because you have to have a leader put his stamp on the organization.
Along those lines, in what ways did he challenge your own thinking? And is there a moment or a transaction where Jed was maybe the driving force? All the credit would go to you in the end, but is there one that jumps out where Jed was kind of the driver?
Yeah, I mean, too many to mention. One that stands out to me always is during the negotiations with the Orioles, the Scott Feldman trade, so to speak. But when we were talking to the Orioles about what would ultimately become the Jake Arrieta trade, Jed kept on pounding the table that we could get a throw in, and that it had to be this guy named Pedro Strop, even though he had like an 11 ERA the year before with the Orioles, and it was seemingly lost at the time as a pitcher. Jed kept pounding the table saying, not only can we get more, but he's the right guy. And like you talk about a throw-in to a deal, Stropey ended up being one of the most consistent and successful relievers in modern Cubs history. So that's one I always think back on, because there's no doubt, if it weren't for Jed being insistent on that and driving that, we would not have gotten Stropey in the deal, let alone maybe complete the deal, and then without Jake Arrieta, all of the history here is different.
On the lines of Jed too, as you were talking about how he's evolved as a leader, how have you seen that come to pass over the last few years that you've been alongside him? Knew him for a long time before Chicago, but how has he really evolved as a leader lately?
Yeah, the last couple of years he's really grown, and I've challenged him in some respects, because sometimes as a number two, you can take a step back and be a little bit more removed. And the last couple of years, he's really jumped in and enhanced his efforts to be, a central part of every discussion in the organization, and his relationships have grown and in the clubhouse, amongst the scouting ranks, with the analytics group, especially, really in all corners of the organization. I think Jed is. You guys know this. Jed is incredible to talk to, right? He's got a great skill at it. I'm always excited when he's there at functions or cocktail parties where like I want to get out of there, or kind of just. And I'd rather like grab one friend and have a conversation at the bar, and meanwhile I look around the room and Jed's having like conversations with every single person in the room. Like, thank God he's here, so I don't have to do that. But he's just, that's his personality. He's amazing to talk to, and makes people feel great about themselves, and has really productive conversations where he questions himself, questions others, questions processes, and ultimately gets closer to the right answer. And so now that he's been right in the middle of things in this organization, is reaching every crevice of the organization. Like, we've grown because of that. It set him up for success as a leader. And that's an area where he's grown in the last couple of years, where maybe he didn't have those relationships all through the organization a couple of years ago. Upon being challenged and maybe seeing this on the horizon, he's really jumped in, and this will be such a seamless transition because of that.
How tough a negotiator was he when you made the Anthony Rizzo trade? And what did you learn about each other after being friends and then trying to make a deal that worked for both clubs?
Yeah, he was tough. We wanted Adrian Gonzalez, and as part of the return package, Casey Kelly was in there, and then, as I recall, Jed wanted Ryan Westmoreland, who would have been, if he hadn't gone through the tragedy, I think would have been an amazing player. But then when we said no to Westmoreland, he wanted Rizzo, and I kept trying to give him Lars Anderson instead. And I can mention this because Lars is a good friend, but Lars Anderson would admit he's no Anthony Rizzo. So we were trying to give him Lars instead, but Jed wouldn't take Lars Anderson. He wanted Anthony Rizzo, and so did a great job getting someone who would, luckily for us, go on to be a cornerstone of the Cubs when we acquired him a couple years after that. But no, he's as I said, he's he can butter you up with the easy conversation and the small talk and the pleasant demeanor, but in the end, he knows what he wants and has a way of being able to get it.
Hey, Theo, I know what you accomplished in Boston was similar to here, but what does it mean to you, just the emotions of being able to do something with this franchise that no one has ever done before and that will always be there with your name on it?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I look at that as a collective accomplishment. When I think about the World Series, I think about all of us doing it together. And again, the lines are blurred. Front office, ownership, players, coaches, managers, fans. That's what made it so special. But individually, I don't know how to answer that. The best way might be with sharing a story. Like before we won, during the rebuild and up through when we started to become competitive, I would occasionally wake up in the middle of a dream where we had just won the World Series. And that moment after you win where you realize that the World Series flag is going to fly forever, that the curse is over, and that we can all rejoice, and that so many people's lives will be forever transformed. And in my case, this great relief that I will have accomplished what I set out to do here, and then could be free moving forward, only to wake up to the realization that it was just a dream, and no, we're in fifth place and have a lot of work to do. And so when we did win and flew back the next morning to Chicago from Cleveland, passed out on my bed and woke up to that same familiar feeling of, wow, we just won the World Series, and then had a brief second where I wasn't sure if it was a dream or not, and then realized it was real life and felt this incredible rush of just joy and pride and accomplishment and collective accomplishment and freedom, realizing that I'd done what I set out to do and could be free from that burden going forward. So in baseball, if you talk to players and executives, you realize that when you do accomplish things, there's a lot of joy, but there's also a lot of relief too, right? Just the burden of expectation and the fear of failure and losing. So it's always a great combination of joy and relief, and that's what I felt. But now seeing the impact that it's had on so many people, it's just an honor to be associated with that event, and a privilege because, as was the case in Boston, here, virtually every day, somebody will come up to me, strangers, and share what the World Series meant to them and to their family, and start sharing intimate details of relationships in their family, growing up watching the Cubs together, what it meant to them. And that is such a privilege. Where else in life can you get that, where you run into a stranger and then all of a sudden they're sharing these intimate details with you and you have this instant connection. So it's just a privilege to be a small part of that.
Hey, Theo, you talked about the transition with the organization, but what's this transition going to be like for you? I mean, what's it going to be like for you to watch a baseball game again with no real, decision-making process? How hard do you think that'll be for you? Do you see yourself picking up the phone and texting Jed to complain about something? Or how do you think this is going to work?
Yeah, absolutely. I've already told Rossi that I have free license to be grumpy after games, and might even call him just to remind him of what it's like sometimes, and to second guess Jed and everything else. But it'll be fun. Being in baseball now, 29 years and running teams for 18 years, one of the great things is being able to share it with your friends and have your friends come to games and sit up and watch the game in the box and share that experience. And it's been a cherished part of the whole deal for me. But there's always this line, right, where we have to get pretty locked in the game, and we're, in mid conversation, sort of second guessing the pitch call, or, questioning why we're attacking somebody a certain way, worried about, a ball falling in a big spot, and not being able to have a beer with a friend during a game because you're working. So I think I'll look forward to that most of all, being able to sit with friends unfettered, have a cold one, and enjoy the game without having to be distracted and locked in. So that'll be a lot of fun.
Do we have anything else for Theo and Tom?
You gonna write a book, Theo?
No plans to do that. That's for old people and great former presidents.
So,
Is there one spot of Wrigley Field you want to sit? Where do you want your seats at Wrigley Field when you come to games?
It was amazing this summer because nobody was in the stands. Obviously, we missed everybody, and it was surreal and weird, and nothing we ever want to experience again. But I had the opportunity to move around, and for a couple homestands, I would sit in a different spot in the ballpark for each game. So moved around the whole seating bowl, got all the different experiences. I've been lucky to sit in the bleachers. We used to sit out there the day after we clinched and soak it all in with the fans. So I think now I can now that I won't be affiliated with the Cubs, I can truly enjoy the full bleacher bum experience and look forward to doing that.
some Cubs fans on Twitter asked if you'll buy Miller Lite for the city like John Lester.
Yeah, I thought it was an amazing gesture by John. It just shows the kind of person that he is, and how he's, first of all, he's been transformative to the Cubs organization. But didn't surprise me. But during a pandemic, I'm not sure it's the right thing for me to be doing, to be buying beers at bars. So maybe we'll just leave it that. Let's take a rain check, and as soon as we're through this thing, every time a Cubs fan bumps into me at a bar, I'm buying from here forward. Till Jed wins the World Series, then it's on him.
Do you have anything else today?
Yeah, get me out of this quickly before I make other promises I can't keep.
And on that note, thanks everyone for joining us. Appreciate your time. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
That was hilarious.